The Chicago Bulls are tiptoeing the line between playoff and lottery team as the odds put them at almost 50% to either make the playoffs or be in the lottery. But one of the key things in that lottery is, can the Bulls stay in the top 10 if they do fall? We're going to talk about it all and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Hayes, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central, Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Bulls fans, let's get into it for today, y'all. And I want to talk about the Bulls, where they stand right now, right? A lot's been made over what the Bulls should do. Should they be trading? Should they be looking to keep their top 10 pick? But either way, let's look at the results base of this right now, right? We look at the Chicago Bulls right now at 15-19 on the season. The Bulls right now have the ninth best odds. The ninth best odds at the number one overall pick, meaning that if the season were to end right now, they'd be ninth before the lottery. Now, the lottery can make them go higher or it can make them go lower, depending on if teams below them in the draft leapfrog them. So the Bulls right now, despite winning as many games as they have, winning 15 games, still being the ninth seed right now in the Eastern Conference, the Bulls still have a chance to keep their top 10 pick. I talked a little bit about that on yesterday's episode, just talking about the sense that the Bulls have this weird place and path that I really hope AK and Eversley don't try to bet on, where they can still technically make the play-in, get eliminated from the play-in, and keep their top 10 pick. But that is such a small thread of a needle that you would have to hit there. I really just hope the Bulls do not try to do that. Now, with this being Chicago and it being the front office that we have here, anything is possible, right? I want to be clear. It is very possible that AK and Eversley look at that and say, so you mean to tell me we cannot trade our talent? We could still possibly keep our top 10 pick? And I just worry that AK and Eversley are going to do that, right? Having the number 9th overall pick would give the Bulls a 17.3% chance to go into the top 4. It'll give them a 3.8% chance to get the number 1 overall pick. They have the exact same record as the Sacramento Kings, and we're a half game behind the Detroit Pistons as well. And so that is a dangerous, dangerous game that the Chicago Bulls are playing. Like, when you look at those odds, those are not odds you want to bet on. Right now, that's if the Bulls' focus is keeping the top 10 pick, which you already know there's more than enough signs to doubt that if that even is the focus of this team this offseason. But if it just highlights the fact that if the Bulls are, right, and again, we do not know for sure, but if the Bulls are really looking to try to increase their chances to keep their top 10 pick, they are playing it by the skin of their teeth. By definition, they are playing it about as close as they possibly can with an attempt to keep that top 10 pick with where the record is now. That's why you hear Bulls fans say things like, "Well, have the Bulls won too many games already to keep their top 10 pick? Are they out of that?" And I would say this: no. Right? The Bulls have probably won too many games already to be in contention, to be one of the bottom teams as far as like bottom 6 teams in the league. But we were never going to aim to do that. That was never what we were aiming to do. That was never the focus of what this team. We already knew that this team was going to be trying to win basketball games. That is part of the reason why most people expected the Bulls to look to make moves with the roster to increase the chances of them keeping that pick, while also still kind of naturally going about development, still trying to win basketball games, those type of things. And so the Bulls are playing a dangerous game there. But when you flip that and look at, all right, let's say that the Bulls' focus is not keeping the top 10 pick. Let's say that they do truly want to compete. They think this team has a chance. They want to go for it. They're still tiptoeing that line as well, right? When you look at it, the Bulls right now have a 50-50 shot at landing in the top 10 right now. And that means, as far as even keep making the play-in, a 50-50 chance to make the play-in. So what are the Bulls doing right now? And this, when we say things like the Bulls have no direction, this is that, right? Because right now they're straddling both lines. When you look at the Bulls' upcoming schedule as well, 6 of our next 9 games are against teams below 500. So this could very well be, we heard that 35 games was kind of the evaluation period for the Bulls, but if 6 of our next 9 games are above teams below, or against teams below 500, I tell you what, if the Bulls lose the majority of those games, your direction may pitch itself for you, right? Because if you can't go on a win streak when you're playing 6 out of 9 games against below 500 teams, that should tell you a lot of where your team really stands in the Eastern Conference. But unfortunately, I don't think AK and Eversley would believe that. I just don't think that they will. Robert in the building. The Bulls need to commit to a direction one way or another, in my opinion. And that's the only point I'm trying to make here, Rob, is that the Bulls, in not picking a direction, don't have a clear path. And if you don't have a clear path, it's hard to see how you're going to improve, because what are you doing, right? And that's the dangerous game that this Bulls team has played for the last 4 years, and it's almost as if they have not learned from it, right? I've moved off of being somebody that I think, that I even believe the Bulls are going to move one of Zach LaVine or Nikola Vucevic. I think the highest chances are that they're both still on the roster, right? But the question then is okay, if you still keep those guys around, how do you use your assets to improve this team so that you can then have a better chance to make the playoffs? I mean, we're talking about a 50-50 chance right now to make the play in. We're not even talking about playoffs, right? Which then it's a whole nother ball game when it's a 1-game elimination for you to get eliminated out of the play-in. So the Bulls just don't have a lot of leeway. And it just these numbers just continue to highlight the fact that the Bulls do not have a direction. We are directionless for the 4th year in a row. And at some point, you would like to think that this team is going to make some type of decision to get you to a place of doing something. It's at this point, it's like a stick. You're just poking the front office and just say, do something. Get up and show a little bit of life. And it seems like the front office came into the season. They talked about wanting to change the shot profile. They talked about wanting to change the style. They did that, and it seems like that was enough for them. That is the path for them right now. JDH, the Bulls are making me confused right now. That's what they're doing, but I'm hanging in there. I mean, I think we're all confused because it's like they're not doing either one well. If you want to keep your top 10 pick, you're not doing that well. If you want to make the play-in, you're not doing that well either, especially when you go into double overtime against teams like the Hornets and then lose against teams like the Washington Wizards. You're not doing either one well. Rob, I'm a little behind, but I think you hit the nail on the head when you said these next upcoming games versus the bottom teams, because if they win, that means they'll have to blow it up. If they lose, they may keep it together and still keep the pick. But I load guys like Craig. Oh, but unload guys like Craig. I mean, yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. Great point there from Rob, because over these next 9 games, with 6 teams being below 500, if the Bulls lose a majority of those games, you could very well talk yourself into and say, hey, we're keeping the right path. And like I said on yesterday's episode, if you're able to add a top 10 pick to this team without losing Vooch, without losing Zach, and let's say you do lose Craig and Javon Carter and Chris Duarte this offseason, but you replace those guys with a vet minimum, a top 10 pick in this draft, hey, who's to say that next year we aren't that team that's competing for the 7th, the 6th seed, the 5th seed, right? And maybe that's what they're hoping on. I just think that that's just such a dangerous game to play, and it's such a small needle that you have to thread there. Winton says, at this point, it seriously feels like AK and Mark Eversley are flipping a coin with every lack of decision. Listen, Two-Face. I believe by February 6th, AK will be able to make a clear direction of where he wants to go this season. But I think it has to do with where we are in the standings. That's just well, they have to do it long before February 6th. That is the deadline. You want to make a decision before you don't want to go into the day of the deadline and be like, hey, so what are we doing? You don't want, my mama's birthday is February 5th. You don't want on Mama Hayes' birthday for AK and Eversley to wake up and be like, hey, so Mark, so what we doing? That's not what but that is what it feels like this franchise does, is that they wake up like, hey, so what I don't know. We'll talk about it later. All right, bet next week, same time next week. Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. Next week. AK Mark Eversley walked to get their morning coffee. So what are we doing? Mark, AK, it's like a Seinfeld sketch. That's what it is between Mark and AK Eversley is Jerry Seinfeld confirmed. But with that said, we're going to take a brief break. We're going to get to a message from FanDuel. On the other side of that, though, we're going to talk about Zach LaVine. So far in this season, Zach LaVine has been the best volume three-point shooter, period. We're going to talk about that. First, get into a message from FanDuel. All right, my Bulls fans, man. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to join in on the excitement of the regular season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a chance to finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. That's right. Just bet $5, and if you win, you're walking away with $250,000 in bonus bets to play with. I love using FanDuel because they make betting so much fun. From picking which players will score touchdowns to guessing total team points, there's always a way to add some thrill to the game. Whether it's the big plays or the small moments, FanDuel has you covered. So what are you waiting for? Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com, where you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, my Bulls fans. So in talking about the All-Star voting, which I do think and I understand why Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic aren't very high in All-Star voting, right? Especially Vuce. When they lump all front court players together, it makes a player like Nikola Vucevic even more difficult, even though statistically, offensively, he's been one of the better centers in the league this year. It just makes it a little bit tough, right? But then you start looking at some of the things with Zach LaVine. And I want to get into these numbers with Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine right now is 44% shooting from three-point range. And when you look at players, all players in the NBA who have taken at least 200 three-point attempts, Zach LaVine ranks #1. Not the 2, not the 3, not in the top 5, not in the top 10. He is #1. Zach LaVine per percentage this year is a better three-point shooter than Norman Powell, Kyrie Irving, Cam Johnson, Darius Garland, all that. When you add in the fact that he's also shooting scoring 22.3 points per game, while he's on the second lowest usage rate of his NBA career. Zach LaVine is balling this year, right? And I think that some people kind of forget that how well Zach LaVine's playing because the numbers aren't the 26, 27 points per game that we've seen from Zach LaVine before. But when you look at it, Zach LaVine's usage rate has gone down from 27% his last full season played to 25%. Again, it's the second lowest usage rate of his career. When you also look at the true shooting percentage, 63.7%, the highest of his career. Zach LaVine is having a great season, right? And for all the questions around Zach LaVine that were there this offseason that talked about Zach as if he was a bad player, as if he was a net negative, I think that the narrative has started to change a little bit. I don't know how much that is improving any trade value or anything, and that's not what this conversation is for either. This is to acknowledge a player in Zach LaVine who backed up what he said he wanted to do. Zach LaVine talked about wanting to be a player that he did not want to get in the way of the development of the young pieces, that he wanted to buy into a role, that he wanted to do what it took to play winning basketball. And when you factor in also that Zach LaVine, for the first time in his career that I've seen consistently, Zach LaVine is asking for some of the best perimeter defensive assignments. You look at a game when we played against the Cavs earlier in the year where he was asking to guard Darius Garland, where he was asking to guard other high-level guard players. Dame Lillard, he wanted to guard Dame, right? It's like Zach LaVine is out on a mission to prove to people, hey, I may not be a top 10 player. I may not even be a #1 on a team. That's fine. But we're not going to act like Zach LaVine. Zachary LaVine isn't a damn good player in this NBA. And I love that Zach LaVine is proving it. He's proving it. You got to love to see, like, again, regardless of your feelings on Zach LaVine or not, you got to love for the first time in Zach LaVine's career, teams are scoring less points when he's on the court. The player that he's guarding is shooting a worse field goal shooting percentage of almost 2% when Zach LaVine is on them. His turnover rate down. His effective field goal shooting percentage up by 5%. Points per 100 possessions up 7.6 points. The only thing that has changed about Zach LaVine's game this year is value. And I tell you what, it may be that he had to refine his game because of the value, right? Zach LaVine is having a objectively really good season. And again, I'm not saying this to talk about, this has nothing to do with trade value. I'm just wanting to spend some time acknowledging, especially because so many people over the last 24 hours have made so much about Zach LaVine not being at the top 10 of all-star voting. Come on, you got Jordan Poole above Zach LaVine? I got to ask NBA fans that voted, what basketball are you actually watching? And I'll say that it can't be much. The Washington Wizards have not been on national TV at all this year. They've been on national TV less than the Chicago Bulls, right? And I get it. And you know what? No, I would understand it more if Jordan Poole was on a winning team. The Washington Wizards are the worst team in basketball. And Jordan Poole is in the top 10 of guards, of guard voting in the Eastern Conference, an Eastern Conference with Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, LaMelo Ball, Zach LaVine, Derrick White, even Tyrese Halliburton has been playing much better. Jordan Poole, really? That's where we're at right now. It makes no sense. And I get it. All-star voting at this point is a popularity contest, and it's not really indicative of who's necessarily having the best season. I want to be clear there. But you got to start asking yourself, how much is the national media narrative really informing these people who vote nationally? Because how, in what world, in what sense, in what what multiverse is Jordan Poole having a better season than Zach LaVine? What season is that? What multiverse is that happening at? Rob, Zach, after the Bucks game and every game versus Porters, he shows how much he liked him as a former teammate. If they had kept him somehow, maybe Zach's growth is different. I don't see that, but it is what it is. Zach is on his knees praying every day, God, please, I'm doing good, playing good. Let me be traded from here. Well, Zach LaVine, for his credit, right? And I'm only taking the man at his word, right? He has said that he wants to stay here in Chicago. So, I mean, listen, I've said it before many, many times, and I'm gonna say it as long as it's still true. Zach LaVine not working out here in Chicago is not a failure completely of Zach LaVine. It's also a failure of this front office's inability to build a cogent team. It just is. It just is. Rob, also, Poole over Zach is wild. No, Jordan Poole is crazy. Exactly. And again, not to knock him. Shout out to Jordan Poole. Shout out to that. But really, what world do we live in which Jordan Poole is a better NBA player than Zach LaVine? That's not an NBA I want to live in. I can tell you that much. Because it's not reality. Jordan Poole as a better player than Zach LaVine. And I get it. That's not necessarily what voting is. Let me be clear. Let me stop being a little dramatic. But come on, y'all. What are we doing? Bulls fans, I need y'all to show up a little bit more, man. Because there's no way that the size of the city of Chicago, that Jordan Poole should be getting more votes than Zach LaVine. It makes no sense. But, shout out to Zach for, coming in after how last season ended. Remember, people were saying that Zach LaVine was deferring too much. I mean, I was one of those people last year, right? And he's come in and he's turned that around to really not only be deferring, but to play winning basketball. Respect to Zach. I have, just from Shay, respect to Zach. I have to give him some credit because despite all the crazy crap that's going on with the team, he has been professional and much more of an asset than Jimmy Butler. We're not even going to talk about the Jimmy Butler nonsense because I tell you what, and I'm going to leave this here. The people that are saying Zach LaVine for Jimmy Butler, I want to smack you all. I want to smack you all because I got to ask yourself, why are you so stupid? Why are you so stupid? No, no, no. Come on. What are we talking about? But all right, we're gonna get up last. We're gonna end the show talking about what is probably gonna forever now be known as Derrick Rose Night, and that's upcoming tomorrow on January 4th. But first, we got to get to the message from Game Time. Win or lose, rain or shine, or snow, because it is snowing in the Midwest today, there's nothing like being there in person at a live event. Whether it's a big game, a concert, or a comedy show, Game Time makes it easier than ever to find great tickets at amazing prices. With their new feature Game Time Picks, you can skip the end of the scrolling and get right to the best deals on incredible seats. It's all about saving you time and money while finding the perfect tickets. Plus, you can use the Super Deal option to score top-notch seats at unbeatable prices. Game Time also also gives you features that make buying tickets stress-free, like all-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout, or the panoramic seat view, which lets you know the exact view that you'll have before you even buy your ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, my lovely and beautiful Bulls fans. Hey, I want to remind you guys, the Locked On Bulls does have a daily newsletter. You just got to go to LockedOnDaily.com to sign up. And then I'll be delivering a newsletter to your inbox every single morning, 100% free. I'll keep you up to date on everything going on with the Chicago Bulls. Just go to LockedOnDaily.com to sign up for the Locked On Bulls daily newsletter. You can also sign up for any other team that you have an interest in, but make sure you take care of Locked On Bulls first. But all right, with that said, man, let's go ahead and get into the last topic for today. Derrick Rose Night is coming up January 4th. The Chicago Bulls versus the New York Knicks. Joakim Noah is going to be in the building. Derrick Rose is going to be in the building. I'm excited to see if any other the former Bulls, like a Kirk Heinrich, show up, right? Maybe even, Paul Gasol may show up. Who knows, right? To honor Derrick Rose and the player that he is. And, CHSN has a whole slate of shows planned for that day. I'm contemplating kicking back and forth if we're going to go live after that game. It really comes down to if the Knicks completely kill the Chicago Bulls, because I'm not going to want to talk about it. If the Bulls get blown out by the Knicks of all teams on Derrick Rose Night. So unless you want to see a crash out, if you want to see crash out Cordero, because I'm not Hayes at that point. Make sure you guys also subscribe to Chicago Bulls Central, because either way, no matter what happens in that game, if we get blown out by the Knicks, not lose. If it's a close game and we lose, that's cool. If we get blown out by the Knicks on the night we're honoring Derrick Rose, I will absolutely be going off. I'm just letting you guys know that right now. It's not going to be pretty. But Derrick Rose Night is coming up. It's tomorrow. And it's just such an amazing experience, right? To get to acknowledge and celebrate a player that not only meant so much to the team, the franchise of the Chicago Bulls, but the city of Chicago at large, right? And Rose has already announced that he's doing a lot in the city of Chicago. I love that, like, now that Rose is retired and he is back in Chicago, and that seems to be his focus. He's opening up the pop-up Rose shop. He's having a lot of kind of things that he's going to be doing with the city to help impoverish youth, things like that. It's really good to see the man of Derrick Rose and how he turned into. Rob says Taj. Oh, absolutely. But no, I think Taj already said that he's not going to be able to. Don't the Thunder play that night? I know it was something that was talked about where Taj tried to get it clear to be at Derrick Rose Night, but I think that it fell through. I think. I could be wrong on that one. Somebody fact check me on that one, but I believe he said maybe they're traveling that day, something going on that day where I think Todd said he's not going to be able to make it, but we'll see. But, I just hope that everybody really understands everything that Derrick Rose meant to the city. And you're going to see it tomorrow night. The city of Chicago is going to be rocking and rolling tomorrow night because the prodigal son returns. He's getting his Rose is getting his flowers. All pun intended there. And so, I this night is going to forever be remembered because we don't always celebrate our former stars well. And while Derrick Rose never, unfortunately, won a title here in Chicago, I think you look at everything he accomplished and how he renewed hope and faith in Chicago. He deserves every bit of what's coming to him tomorrow night. And so just wanted to spend the end part of this show acknowledging Derrick Rose and getting everybody ready for Derrick Rose Night. But that's my time. That's the week. You guys can follow me at CEO Hayes. You can follow Locked On Bulls at Locked On Bulls. We are free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, and Amazon Fire TV. If you want Locked On Bulls, you can get it anywhere. But that's my time. Love you guys. Go Bulls. See red. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.